Hi, my name is Ben, and today I am talking about A Real Pain, a movie that I got the chance to see at the Sundance Film Festival earlier this year. I saw it basically a year ago, and it stayed in conversation, so I wanted to touch on this movie today as it releases to a wider audience. And this is a movie that I actually had a lot to say, and especially about the two lead performances, which I think is the reason this movie has been able to build momentum, is because of the performances of Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. But the synopsis of A Real Pain, it follows cousins David and Benji, who reunite to travel through Poland to honor their beloved grandma, a Holocaust survivor. We have David, who is the very put together cousin, and then we have Benji, who is the opposite of that. He is very aloof. He is going through a down phase in his life, and he is really struggling, and it is the story of these two cousins connecting in this shared family history. And the themes of this movie are about Jewish identity, history, and especially this idea of academic history versus personal history, and the museumification of tragedy. And then we also just have a lot of other ideas, such as reckoning with family trauma. And then this movie explores the moral conundrum of what is pain and suffering when compared to something extraneous, when something is so evil. What does our own day-to-day suffering look like in comparison? And this is a lot of heavy topics done with a very light touch by Eisenberg. It has his signature comedy style in this movie mixed with Culkin, and you get a movie that is 90 minutes of just a lot of laughs, but a lot of thought-provoking ideas within it. And let's just start with the big performance out of this movie. I think the one that is really garnering the most attention from people, which is Benji, played by Kieran Culkin, Succession star. And as the title may suggest, this character of Benji is a real pain. He is aggressive. He is aloof. He says what's on his mind, and he has no filter. He is the exact opposite of what we typically believe the Jesse Eisenberg persona to be. And Culkin is undeniably charismatic in this role, and he does a really fitting job to really be the counteract to Jesse Eisenberg's David character, as these two kind of mismatched going through polling and dealing with their own problems, like dealing with their own struggles as cousins and learning to love each other again or accept each other for where they are in their life. And I just want to turn the TikTok camera on real quick, and let's talk about what makes A Real Pain special. And it is the performances of Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. When you talk about one, you got to talk about the other, because it is a dynamic in these movies. And the dynamic of these two men in A Real Pain is great. They are exploring their family history in this odd couple type road trip. Eisenberg's non-confrontational matter of fact, his stiffness that he is known for in such roles as The Social Network, makes him the complete polar opposite of Culkin, who is brash, he is in your face. And it's a road trip movie of dueling personalities who love each other, but also struggle to relate, minus a shared pain that they both have in the loss of their grandma. And both of these performances are excellent, and they both work so well together, and they feel so natural as cousins. It is really a testament to Jesse Eisenberg's direction and writing and casting in this movie, and they are both wonderful in this movie. And I liked A Real Pain quite a bit. I liked it, but I did want to talk about some criticisms I've had of this film. And I don't mean to be disparaging. I did find A Real Pain to be a bit slight, and I wanted more. For whatever reason, something just wasn't landing with me in the Culkin performance. And I think it's because this movie doesn't really give him the big moments that I think the film is leading up to. Instead, those moments go to Eisenberg, and Jesse Eisenberg gives a great performance in this movie, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more. But Culkin, there just seems like there's a few character beats that could have been added to him. I don't know what it was, but something wasn't fully connecting with me for the Culkin performance singular. Now, when you're talking about the two of them together, I think this dynamic is fully realized. Everyone comes out talking about Culkin because he is certainly the more flashy performance as his character dictates. But meanwhile, Eisenberg is secretly kind of giving his best performance since The Social Network. I think he is exceptional in Real Pain. He's not only just such a natural director and writer, despite this being only his second film, but what he does is he is able to just hold up a restraint in his performance. And it's a restraint that you always feel that is wavering. You feel the facade of this character, David. And when the facade finally breaks and when he becomes real and when he just kind of lets loose and you can feel him no longer being able to hold on with some of his frustrations, it is genuine restraint where the dam finally breaks. And it's a really just wonderfully acted, beautifully written moment. And it really is the heart and soul of this movie. I was truly impressed with what Jesse Eisenberg brought to this movie and that dynamic that I mentioned, so special with Culkin. And I wanted Culkin to have, I think, one of these beats similar to a moment that the character David has in a restaurant where he's basically explaining all of Benji to the audience. It's an exposition scene, but it's delivered so well. I guess I wanted Culkin to have a moment like that in this movie. He has certainly good scenes in this movie. He didn't have the emotional resonance scene like Eisenberg has in this movie. This movie is about Jewish identity. This movie is an exploration of something every Jewish person must reckon with. I can say this with confidence as a Jewish person myself. It is their relationship to the Holocaust, both directly and indirectly. And when we talk about Jewish identity, we can talk about it in a multitude of different ways. There is the cultural Jewish, which I am. I have family who descends from that part of the world, but I am not a practicing religious Jewish person. Then we can also talk about the religious, and then there's people who are both. And when we talk about Jewish identity, we are talking about the past. We are talking about honoring the past and identifying our ancestors' suffering in a celebration of life in its beauty and terror. It is essentially the collective Jewish story. Everyone of Jewish identity has that kind of ingrained growing up. Even again, if you're not religious, there is still kind of that cultural. And I'm sure a lot of other identities have something similar, but this story did feel very Jewish in that way. And what I loved about the Jewish identity and it explored, and especially this idea of the Jewish story and our history, is it's numbing. And it's a fascinating thing that I don't think many mainstream films have been able to capture. The numbingness of sadness in the Jewish story, especially as it relates to the Holocaust. And this movie does a fantastic job at exploring the academic versus the personal. I found this extraordinarily interesting, being a historian myself, someone who graduated with a history degree, seeing the concept of the museumification of tragedy explored in this movie. This movie is identifying this idea of the museumification. We as a people are numb to horror. And it's exemplified in the tour guide of this movie. He gives a very funny performance, and he's always at odds with the Culkin character, Benji, as there's this moral conundrum between the tour guide, who is quite literally doing his job. He is giving the history, he is giving the context, he's paying respect, but he's also just giving a lot of information and not necessarily letting the moments soak in for the people, for the tourists. And then we have the Culkin character who's able to come in and just kind of say, let's tone it back. Let's just, the horror speaks for itself, and being in this is the presence. It's all the context we need. And it's that idea of museumification, this idea of quantifying information and just kind of spitting it out because it's historical context. It's important, but sometimes we can then strip it of relatability. But then in that we can strip it of relatability, we strip it of the power, and essentially we are just transforming it into a artifact of the past and a museum exhibit, which is it is not. It is a horror that was entailed on people that still resonates and still causes pain to this day. And I think that's what A Real Pain is able to capture so well. It is an idea of a movie that we can understand and in some cases relate and identify, but to comprehend would almost be too much. And that's what this movie is really playing with, comprehending such horrors and living with it and trying to understand what that means in our own lives and how we put our own lives in context of something so horrendous, and especially when it is part of identity. And it's what the Culkin character is really struggling with. It's a very profound idea, and it's done in a way with Eisenberg's writing and direction that it is a lighthearted approach to it, but it is still taking the subject matter at its most serious. It pays respect while still being fun for the audience to enjoy. And it's profound, and I think that's why it's resonating with lots of audiences right now. And there's one scene that really exemplifies everything that this movie is able to accomplish right, and that is when there is a walkthrough of a concentration camp in this movie. There's no tour guide narrating. There is no words needed. The horror speaks for itself, and we as an audience are able to feel something, which is essentially what the Benji character is seeking. He is trying to feel something, and it's a real pain to feel. It's a well done movie. I really would encourage all audiences to check this movie out. Jesse Eisenberg really impressed me. For fans of Kieran Culkin, this is yet another example of who he can be as an actor. And I really just think this is a delightful movie. It played very well at Sundance. Again, I have my issues with it, and I find it a bit too small scale, and I don't think the writing always comes to play and always works. But when this movie hits, and it hits more often than it doesn't, it's a really profound, beautiful movie exploring a pain, a real pain, I guess you could say. So in that case, a real pain, 3.5 out of 5 stars from me. And thank you for watching this video. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more.